Um, so as background, we're in the business of helping associations and other folks report payment obligations to their credit bureaus. That's sort of the background of what Sperlonga does. So, we didn't think it was sort of fair that, things that, like associations didn't have the same powerful tools that banks and lenders and every, lender in the country utilizes. And so, that's what we sort of bring to the table and try and help other types of asset classes, other types of payment obligations get both sort of the benefits of being able to help build credit and then subsequently be able to hold folks accountable to the extent people aren't making their payments timely. So a little bit of background on us. The firm was formed in 2014 in partnership with Equifax, which is one of the 3 consumer credit bureaus. When we looked at the HOA industry, we were just fascinated with the amount of money. At the time, it was about $80 billion changed hands between homeowners and their HOAs. Fast forward to today, it was around $110 billion last year. So just an enormous amount of money that, unfortunately, again, doesn't have the same power as, leveraging credit reporting and leveraging sort of getting visibility into payment behaviors, things along those lines. And so, it's been 10 years. We've just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So we've been doing this for a while. We have clients in every state. We have clients from various sizes, not two, but we have 3-unit condominiums all the way up to huge master plan communities and everything sort of in between. From there, we also support a variety of other types of payments as well. Again, we really want to bring the power of credit reporting to a variety of other industries that have not, historically been able to leverage them, such as rental properties, rental property management. Again, same type of a dynamic. It's another housing related expense. Why when you pay your mortgage payment to Bank of America, you're able to build your credit, but when you're paying your landlord, you're not? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So a variety of different types of asset classes we help. But again, we started in the HOA and the association space. So how does credit reporting help HOAs and homeowners? There's sort of 2 sides of the coin. There's a delinquency and sort of holding folks accountable to making sure that your payments are going to get paid on time. And then there's obviously the benefit side of it of creating a new trade line, paying that trade line on time, and seeing increases in that. So we'll start on the delinquency side, and I can appreciate it if some associations don't have a lot of delinquency. That's fantastic news. There's still huge benefits in for doing this as well for you. But we'll start with the delinquency. So on average, we see about a 30% reduction in those delinquencies in the first 90 days. So, why and what's the driver of that? Unfortunately, associations don't have a lot of really good tools to leverage to sort of enforce any type of delinquencies. You can send it to a lawyer, you can send it to your collection agency. What are they going to do? They're going to make lots of phone calls and they're going to send lots of letters. So, unfortunately, as technology's gotten better for consumers and homeowners, et cetera, collection agencies and really have sort of lost a lot of their luster, if you will. There's a million apps on the App Store that you can download and block phone numbers. And so you just download the app for free and you can load it on your phone. The collection agency calls you once, you stick it on the do not, block list, if you will, and it doesn't even ring anymore. So, I don't know about anybody else. I personally open my mail over the trash can because 99.9% of it is trash. So all the nasty gram letters and things along those lines, which unfortunately get really expensive when you're doing it consistently, they just end up in the trash and people sort of stop thinking about it. In some states you can file a lien, in some states you can take it to foreclosure action as well. But again, all of these sort of methodologies are just very expensive. They're very time consuming. And so while by adding credit reporting to your association, is that going to 100% eliminate the requirement for any of those? No, but it's going to drastically drop the number of times when you have delinquencies sort of popping up. The other thing that we find is really interesting also is it takes your delinquencies and it really sort of puts people into 3 buckets. And so the first bucket is the one that we want to affect the most and the fastest, which is the person who just knew that if they made their assessment payment late, it was okay because nothing happened with it, right? It didn't affect their credit and they knew that. All of a sudden, when they're notified that this is going to start going onto their credit report, these are the folks that start paying right away. This is a very fast-moving dynamic, and so this population of delinquencies will cure itself very quickly. The second bucket are unfortunately just you're called your bad actors. They don't care about their credit, they don't care about their association assessments, they feel no obligation to their neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the population where you're going to have to go ahead and take those more sort of serious and drastic measures. The nice thing about it, though, is you're going to find out who those are quickly, because again, you're going to be able to bucket them into that. And then the third bucket are going to be the folks that, bad things happen to good people all the time. And these are the folks who are really having sort of payment, having some sort of financial difficulty. And that's where, as the board and as the management company, you sort of put your deal making hats on and say, let's find a way to work something out with this owner who really is going through a tough time. There's lots of flexibility in what we do and how we report and things along those lines. And then subsequently, how you manage your collection sort of activities in general. When you really know that you've got somebody who's going, who's historically been a good payer, but all of a sudden ran on tough times, you know who to work sort of that on, if you will. So having the ability to sort of drop your delinquencies into one of three buckets, again, really helps just understanding sort of the different drivers of these different things. So again, we are able to also report 2 years in the past. So we can go backwards 2 years. So this is another powerful dynamic. To the extent you have someone that is delinquent outstanding for a long period of time, we're able to catch that up and report, go backwards and report them going forward. Additionally, we're able to report everyone who's paying on time going forward positively. So you're able to get this, sort of the second you turn it on, you can get 2 years worth of positive reporting history hitting the credit report right away, which is obviously very, very, can really move the needle in a positive direction as well. So as I mentioned, there's two sides. There's the one side of the coin is why does every bank, lender, and finance company in the country use credit reporting? Because it helps resolve delinquencies. Like hands down, it does. It keeps people, from going delinquent. They really have to think about it because they know that it will affect their credit. Things when they go on their credit can stay there for 6 years and 9 months. There's a misnomer there. It's 7 years. It's actually 6 years and 9 months from what's called the DFD, or the date of first delinquency. So people are aware of this. And so they want to make sure that they are paying these obligations on time. When you notify them that this is going to happen, it really does change the behavior. On the flip side, in terms of building credit, why is it that when you make your auto payment, you're able to build credit, and you're making your assessment payment, you're not? Sometimes assessment payments are as much, if not more, than auto payments or credit card bills, things along those lines. So you really sort of can do yourself and your community a really good favor in being able to, again, this is a fixed payment obligation. It's not optional. So if they got to make it, why not get credit for it? There's a big push to try and help folks, sort of build out broader credit profiles, because there's a lot of folks that sort of don't have much in terms of their on their credit anymore. Both in terms, this is on sort of various different sides of the spectrum. You could have a very young person who just doesn't have any credit as of yet, or someone who may have paid off their house and has no bills, and they literally have nothing on their credit. Their credit will actually suffer because there's nothing there. Having their assessment payment being reported will again continue to establish a credit report and credit history for them. So the upshot is we see all the time where owners turn on this. Again, especially when you go backwards 2 years and you're able to report the 2 years, you'll see a 50-point jump inside of 90 days. So having the positive impact is the other side. And it's equally as important, if not more important, to be able to, see the value of the service, if you will. Again, credit reporting is widely utilized. We've been doing HOA for 10 years. We've been in rental for about 9. I mean, anything and everything can be reported. Not anything. We went and tried to figure out if we could do gym memberships, and they said, no, everybody sort of signs up January 1st. That's their New Year's resolution, and then they quit by March. It's too clear that this is sort of how this works. So, but the vast majority, a lot of payment obligations can be reported. So things like utilities are being reported now. Cell phone bills. I mean, Experian had a big national sort of TV ad campaign a little bit ago around Experian Boost, where they're really trying to figure out, okay, can we even report Netflix accounts? Like anything associated with getting more visibility into someone's payment behavior. The more visibility you have into the person's payment behavior, the lower risk. So the more that's there, it really helps, especially when it's being paid on time. So there's a really big push in order to sort of get more data, if you will, to again, the more data that's there, it sort of helps you become what's considered a full file, which just means that you have a good understanding of this person's payment behavior. And again, lower risk equals lower rates. So good help there. So a couple case studies, and again, this is sort of more focused on the delinquency here, but I mean, this is a management company that we started working with, and almost $1.5 million of delinquencies were paid off inside of a year. So a large amount of money sort of comes in. We cut the delinquency, number of accounts by 50% just through credit reporting, and recovered a massive amount of money. The thing that I always find is really interesting is we'll look at buckets too of sort of the aging of the receivables. And so your 180-day plus receivables, those are some of some of the ones that you sort of say, okay, this person's like, we're going to get it when they refinance or sell their house, but like nothing's happening. You'd be amazed when all of a sudden they're notified that you're going to be reporting all payments, both positive and negative, to the credit bureaus. You'll be amazed how many of those people sort of pop their head up and make a phone call and want to secure that delinquency right away. So it operates quickly. When you get going, one of the first things we do is send out notifications to all the homeowners or members of the community. Just saying, starting this date, we're going to be reporting all payments to the credit bureaus. If you make a payment on time, it has a positive impact. To the extent you don't, it could have a negative impact. The phone will ring immediately at Cadden, and you'll be able to collect a bunch of money before you ever even turn it on. So it really does help with any type of delinquencies. Again, another sort of case study just about the number of units that actually came down. So 98 accounts in this community that were delinquent paid off. So relatively quickly there, a good amount of money. So we have just tons and tons and tons of this case study. So if there's any type of delinquency, I mean, there's a reason why, you'd look at your bank or Fannie if they said, if you asked to get a car loan and they said, we don't report to the credit bureaus. I mean, it's relatively standard. It is standard in the banking and finance industry. So it begs the question, if credit reporting is going to happen on the mortgage, which is related to the same house, why wouldn't the association payment be reported as well? It just makes sense. They're tied together. It's the exact same asset. It's not like Bank of America's income is any more important than your associations that supporting your neighborhood. So again, we really believe in the power of this, and it works. There's a reason why everybody in that sort of side of the world does it. Again, a big piece is that it really sort of helps with increasing homeowner accountability. Again, we hear this all the time where you've got folks that, they pay their cell phone bill because they need it. They'll pay their credit card because they don't want to hurt their credit. They'll pay their mortgage, but then they don't pay their association assessment because, quite frankly, nothing bad happens to them on the credit. And again, some associations, it depends on the amenities and what sort of tools you have in order to sort of enforce things or take things away or try and get that payment to come in. But it's just not as powerful as being able to say, look, your payment is going to be on your credit no differently than your credit card. It really changes the thought process on, okay, do I want to pay the credit card or do I need to pay the assessment? Now all of a sudden you've leveled the playing field from an importance perspective. Again, on the flip side, it's the whole piece of pay this assessment payment on time and it's going to boost your credit. And so they may make if you're tight on money or something along those lines, they may say, look, instead of making $500 towards a credit card payment, I'm going to make the minimum payment on my credit card. And I'm going to pay my association assessment because I know now they care and they are monitoring and they are going to report this. So a different dynamic of just sort of changing that piece. But again, really pushing the fact that at the end of the day, we would love for everybody just to be paying their bill on time. And again, building their credit score from that perspective. Important dynamic to understand just about credit reporting. So there's two sides of it. It depends on which way you view it. So everything in the credit reporting world, whether it's mortgage, credit card, auto, student loan, anything along those lines, is on 30-day cycles. So what does that mean? Let's hypothetically say the assessment is due April 1st, right? It is legally, philosophically, and technically late April 2nd. However, the association may or may not do anything with that until, let's say, until the 10th, and you're going to send them a demand letter. And then the 15th, you're going to send, assess a late fee. There's lots of things you can do inside of that 30 days. What happens is we pull the data out of Cadden's management technology on May 5th, 6th, or 7th. It just depends on sort of weekends and holidays, but right around that time period, we're going to pull the data. And we're going to look as of May 1st, was April's payment made by May 1st or not? So if they made the payment on April 29th, it's still going to report as positive. If they still have not made the payment, then it will report as a negative, a 30-day delinquency. And then obviously the longer it ages, it goes 30 days delinquent, then 60 days, then 90 days. So the point is, if someone pays their assessment payment 3 days late, you're not negatively affecting their credit. They essentially have a 30-day grace period, and that's from the date of when it's due. Clearly, the owner knew when the payment was actually going to be due. It's not like they just got a call on March 30th and said, hey, you've got a payment to be made tomorrow. I mean, everyone's aware of this. So it really is a pretty good amount of time to build in a grace period, if you will, for folks to make sure that they do make their assessment payments on time. But if you report, you're not going to report them if it's they're a day to even 29 days late. They still don't get reported negatively. So we just like to make sure everyone's aware of that. So on the right is just sort of what a credit report looks like. We do report to Equifax, TransUnion, and Dun & Bradstreet. So Equifax and TU are the two consumer bureaus that do take HOA data. Experian does not. Dun & Bradstreet is the commercial credit reporting agency. So if you've got anyone that owns a property in one of your communities, so an LLC or an irrevocable trust, or let's say it's a foreclosure and it's an REO and it's owned by a bank, or it's owned by one of these private equity funds that's run around and bought up all the tons of houses and renting them out, that's where those get reported. So you've got sort of two different avenues depending on the ownership structure, if you will. And so that's sort of a dynamic of how that piece works. From a pricing model, we like to keep it really simple. So it is free for everyone who makes their payments on time. So sort of the best gig in town. You get to build your credit for free as long as you pay your payment on time. Pretty simple dynamic there. We charge $30 per month per delinquency. So what generally happens from a practical perspective is you've got 100 units, just hypothetically, 99 of them pay on time, one doesn't. We're going to assess a $30 fee for that month. What the association and management company generally then do is put that on the owner's ledger. So that goes on there as an additional collection cost. And so again, the 99 folks that paid on time get free credit reporting, free credit building. And the one person that didn't make their payment on time after those 30-day grace period, then all of a sudden they're the ones that are going to be responsible for it. So again, we want to make this sort of a win-win and really sort of help as much as we possibly can. So there's really no cost to the association from an income statement perspective. So again, this becomes it goes on the ledgers almost similar to a late fee, if you will. So again, we've rolled this out to thousands and thousands of associations. One, we're going to provide a huge amount of education materials. We've got videos, slides, webinars, slicks, all sorts of different things around this. Share with your neighbors. Again, lots of information just on like, what is a credit score? How do you build a credit score? How does the whole thing work? So we've got a lot of information we'll be able to provide you for that. Another important dynamic to understand is what's called the FCRA, which stands for the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So that is what governs credit reporting. A lot of times it can get confused with what's called the FDCPA, which is what governs collections. They both start with F and they both end with A, but they're sort of like the FAA and FDA. They don't touch that often. The only time the FAA and the FDA touch is when you're eating food on a plane. Outside of that, they sort of stay in their own swim lanes, if you will. So the FCRA was put in place really to govern credit reporting, but it's really to provide a lot of protections to make sure that the ecosystem works. So it really is there to protect data furnishers from getting sued left and right, because mistakes happen and things along those lines. I mean, if you think about the millions of transactions that happen every day at any one of the big banks, I mean, there are going to be data errors, mistakes. Somebody's going to accidentally push an extra zero on 100 and have it show up as 1,000, things like just stuff is going to happen. But it's really important to protect the ecosystem and make sure that the liability is somewhat eliminated so that people do report. So as an example, if Bank of America was to get sued every time one of their clerks accidentally pushed an extra zero and reported it into the credit bureaus, and the consumer are really upset about it, which is understandable, but they get upset about it and they sue Bank of America for $1 million. And Bank of America, if they feel like they have any risk, they're just going to say, we're not going to participate in credit reporting. And then all of a sudden, everybody at the bank would do it, and interest rates would go up 5,000% because you wouldn't have any visibility into someone's payment worthiness, if you will. So the FCRA is really there to protect data furnishers from this type of thing. And we've got through Cadden, through our partnership, really sort of helps partner with us on resolving those types of things. And again, that's a very well documented, very well sort of run process, if you will. But we manage any types of disputes that come in. If and when mistakes happen, that whole thing is going to be managed by our internal team to keep in compliance with the FCRA. But the FCRA is really there to again, protect furnishers and make sure that people are comfortable pushing data. Because in general, the more data that we have, the better risk decisions that lenders, banks, employers, et cetera, can leverage and do. So making sure that ecosystem is protected is pretty important. There's really no impact from an association perspective. Really, nothing changes or happens. Cadden and us, we work together to sort of execute this program because we're pulling data from them. But nothing really changes. It happens. We'll send out, again, to the extent your community wants to move forward, we're going to help and send out some notification templates out to the various owners. And then from there, it's no differently. Nothing's going to happen differently. The board's not going to have to do anything differently or anything along those lines. It's sort of seamless in the background, no differently than if you're paying your mortgage payment, your credit card payment, et cetera. You don't have to do anything necessarily in order to do that. So that's all handled on the back end. So I wanted to keep it short and sweet, leave some time for questions. That's sort of the background material, but happy to delve in and answer any questions you may have.